Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Rav Shmuel here, Rabbi Stephen, Rav Shmuel ben Yehoshua, Rashbi with you today. I still want to say Rashbi in the house. Is that appropriate, that expression, or is it gone? I don't know. Okay, so before we get to Mishpatim, I don't do this very often, but I'm going to rant. And I'm going to rant because when Israel was attacked, and Israel defended themselves after people, innocent people, unarmed people, were murdered. The world seemed to have a problem with that. They wanted fair, I don't know what. They wanted a fair war, which kind of doesn't exist, but it is what it is. Okay. Anybody who is awake knows what's going on in Iran. The Iranian people are wanting their own freedom, and they are protesting against a very oppressive government that is executing many people. Now, some of the numbers have seen outrageous. 30,000 people have been killed by the guards, the Quds, or the Iranian Republic's National Guards. Okay, and I don't see the outrage that people had when Israel defended itself and put down an enemy, who, by the way, is back in power and is also executing their own people who they suspect are cooperating with Israel. So I don't know what to say about it, folks. It's really disappointing, and that's a very modest word. It's not the word I'd like to use, but consider it. Which kind of brings me in a segue away, in a way, to what this portion is all about. So this week, we are looking at Parsha Mishpatim. Mishpatim means judgment. And let me also introduce the concept of the Hebrew word for charity, which, by the way, doesn't exist. In Hebrew, there is no specific word for charity. We use the word tzedakah. And tzedakah, tzedek, means righteousness. So we have a undercurrent concept of righteousness woven and embedded into this parsha of Mishpatim. Okay, what does that mean? Well, last parsha, Yitro, at the end, Moshe Rabbeinu, Moses, our teacher, received the 10 declarations. They were 10 declarations. People call them commandments. Both are correct. But these were the main, this is the body, this is the bedrock, okay, the support of what is to come. And these declarations, these commandments, form the basis of righteous living that we Jews look to live. So, 10 commandments. Okay, we got the first five, which involves our relationship with God, and that establishes the idea that there is a greater power, the one true God that is eminent and is acting in our world. Actually, God doesn't act in our world. We act in our world. That's why God created us. As a rabbi, that's what I'm espousing. The idea that God created us to do his work, because God is not a material being. Sure, God can make things happen, and God creates miracles day by day, as we say 3 times in our Amidah, our prayers, our standing prayer. But God needs us to act and interact. So the way to do that is by divine, ultimately fair standards. Okay, so we have the first five commandments. I'm the Lord your God. There you have no gods before me. Don't take my name in vain. Honor the Sabbath. Honor your parents. First five. Okay. Then we have rules of society, which is don't murder, don't steal, don't commit adultery, don't lie, don't want something that somebody else has and actively go after it. And it's been suggested by a lot of folks that all the other 603 commandments that are listed in the Torah really kind of come or emanate from those 10 declarations. So now that we have the basis, now that we've established the basis of righteous living, now we continue. And what is the next set of laws and teachings that come after that? You would think that with the flow of Torah, how do you follow an act like that, right? Something really spectacular. And the act that follows is how to treat people on the lowest rungs of society, which are slaves and encumbered workers. These are people that really have to work. Either somebody stole something and now they have to work off the value of what they stole, or somebody maybe who is destitute and needs a second chance in life, and they're trying to work for somebody, to be cared for somebody, um, work for them in return of being cared for. And at the end of that time period, 7 years or so, they go free and they are able and they have resources to start their life again. How you treat people like that is very important because most people that are slaves are treated as possessions, as chattel, as less than human. So if you can show humanity to people that are on the lowest rungs of the ladder of society, that kind of elevates your soul, your spirit. So later on, we talk about being kind to the widow and the orphan and the stranger among you and the Kohanim and the Levites that have no possessions, that are really poverty stricken. You know, you have a man and a woman get married, and the man goes off and works either as a farmer, as a cattle herder, maybe they have some sort of trade. And then the woman stays home and takes care of the kids, nurtures them, feeds them, teaches them social mores and ethics, takes care of the home. And you've got this great partnership, this divinely mandated partnership. So when one of the partners is not available, then the other one kind of has to do a double duty in a way, don't they? And sometimes that's not possible. Sometimes it's just very, very difficult. What about somebody who loses both their parents and they're not at an age yet when they can take care of themselves? What happens to them? Okay, there are some societies where they just get tossed to the side. Judaism says, no, no, these people need your help. In fact, God even says, I will set this up because I want to give you the opportunity to be righteous. You know, a lot of times in our lives, we go through life and we're tested. God wants to see what we'll do. But even more than that, God wants us to act righteously, because every time you behave properly, righteously, with strict morals and ethics, you add to the world. Think about it. One of the other concepts in this particular portion, okay? Remember the saying, the little rhyme we had as kids, finders, keepers, losers, weepers? Doesn't exist in Judaism. You find something that's somebody lost, that's just there, you have to go out of your way to try and find the owner of that thing. Now, after a reasonable search, yeah, you can keep it, but only after you've exhausted every means to find the rightful owner. Think about it. It's counter to the way a lot of people live these days. So this is what God demands of us. God wants us to act righteously, and that's why this is going to start a whole list, a whole cavalcade of behavior, of actions that we need to take. And why did God choose us? Why are we the chosen people? You've heard that. Oh, the Jews are the chosen people. What makes them so special? Because we chose God. Because Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob were the first people on this earth to say there is one God, and that God wants righteousness and justice. Right? Abraham was tested, wasn't he? He had the three strangers, the travelers, that told him that Sodom and Gomorrah was going to be destroyed. And what did Abraham do? He pled for the mercy. That was the first sign. Okay, and the way the rest of our folks have behaved. Moses has taken us through the Song of the Sea. Through the Song of the Sea. Yeah, I'm sure he sang it right. He's taken us through the splitting of the sea. And people start complaining. Where's water? What about food? What about shelter? And Moses intervenes. He goes to God. He goes, okay, now what? And God says, okay, well, take the tree, throw it in the water, and you're going to go. You can drink the water. What about food? Yeah, I'm going to give you food for the next, well, we 40 years. It actually says that in the Torah right there. Okay, we don't have yet the mandate that, Israel is going to be stuck out in the wilderness for 40 years, but there's your first clue. And this is what what Israel ate for the next 40 years, the manna. Interesting. Okay, so that's where we're headed right now. We have had some very interesting phenomena happen, and we're going to see how this righteousness plays into our lives and how we apply it to the world so the world can be a better place. So that maybe when we see people being murdered by a regime, maybe we are compelled to take action. Shabbat Shalom, everybody. And as usual, thank you for listening.